Hello, everyone. My name is Slađana, and I'm a project manager here at CEEMAN, and I will be your host today. I'm very happy to have all of you with us. Today, we will be focusing on student engagement and Zoom fatigue, but most of all, we will be focusing also on you participants, on your challenges, your questions, your problems, your emotions as well. So I will be very brief. I'm also very happy to have with me CEEMAN President, Professor Danica Purg, who is here to give us a few opening words and also to present the guest speakers today. So without further ado, Danica, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Slađana. I like such a project manager who is doing everything. And not only that, but bringing great people like Bart and Rashaan today, not only today, but already before in the CEEMAN circle, so that we are really, getting two great, in fact, academic entrepreneurs who are ready to share with us their knowledge, their experience, and the long term, building up the long-term relationship with CEEMAN. And through that also with you, dear participants. And I'm so happy to see some friends here on the screen. So special greetings to all my friends and to ones to be friends. So as I mentioned already, we have with us Bartosz Gonczarek, the lecturer at the University of Wrocław, Faculty of Economics from Poland. And he is co-founder of Explain Everything. So I hope we shall get explanation for everything today. And the other co-founder of this great organization, Explain Everything, is Rashaan Richards, the lecturer from Columbia University, School of Professional Studies, and adjunct assistant professor, Teachers College, Columbia University. So I would like to say that we are very, very happy to host you. And you know that we have a very special seminar already for quite some years where Slađana is responsible for, and that is the EdTech seminar, which will this year take place on October 20, 27, and November 3rd. So in 3 parts, and where they will devote also one session to teaching participants how to use their whiteboard, because they are famous on their whiteboard, and give participants also free license for 3 months. So that is like an additional, goodie that you are getting. And of course, I hope we shall all enjoy the lecture of today and lectures and, the meeting and the discussing. And here I would like to give the floor to Bartosz or Bart, or I don't know exactly who is starting. Here it is, but one of you. So please just start, and so that
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Danica, for introducing us, and thanks for having us. This is an honor. We're so happy to meet you today and share our, expertise and however we can help you out. Let me just begin that I'm a co-founder of EdTech company together with Rashaan, but I'm also a teacher, as you are, and I'm a teacher within one of the CEEMAN affiliated institutions, and it is a University of Business in Wrocław. I primarily teach entrepreneurship and international business, and I, as a co-creator of software, I see it from both ends, as for seeing the experience in the classroom and being able to compare the experience with the virtual type of whiteboards that we use when teaching remotely. I'm happy to share those experiences today with you when speaking about the video conferencing fatigue, and we'll be on that topic very soon. But let me now ask Rashaan to introduce himself so you know who you have here today on the call.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. I guess many of you, it is your afternoon. I am Reshan Richards. I am joining right now from Connecticut, just north of New York City, from home, as I've been working from home quite a lot, as I'm sure many of you have as well. I teach at Columbia School of Professional Studies. I teach in the Human Capital Management program, courses on organizational strategy and learning and leadership development. And then I also teach at Teachers College at Columbia University in the educational technology and education technology leadership. And I am, like Bart, very honored to have this chance to meet with all of you and speak with all of you. Even though one of my titles is lecturer, I don't consider anything I do to ever be a lecturer. And hopefully there's a lot more of us collectively engaging than either Bart or myself lecturing at you. And like Bart said, we are two of the three original co-founders of Explain Everything, and it's what we're using to visually support this experience today. So you may pick up on that. But what we're going to do, and hopefully at this point, many of you are familiar enough with Zoom or just with video conferences in general, that we have a chat function that we're going to use for a quick warm-up exercise. And I'm gonna put a prompt up on the next slide, and you'll read it, you'll internalize and respond and react, and all you have to do is just type in the first thing or things that come to your mind when given this prompt. Okay, I hope everybody is ready. Here we go, the suspense, and here is your prompt. Please type in your reactions in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, honest reaction from the top of your mind. And I guess, it's quite interesting for us to exchange those experiences with you, because we all were put in the situation where we had to switch modes, teaching in the classroom and then teaching remotely, now in some sort of hybrid mode. And we're all improving our skills in doing that. So it's quite fascinating to discuss, what we've learned over the year of this, exercise, and what we can do best as teachers to improve the situation, not only for our students, but also for ourselves. Okay, we see first answers appearing in the chat.
Somebody has gently indicated profanity, but they used symbols instead of typing such words. That is very professional. Thank you. I mean, a couple of people asked, like, which class are teaching a class on what? Just pick one. Or maybe that is the first thing that comes to mind, is more analyzing the question rather than paying attention to your emotional response. Give you another 10, 30 to 20 seconds here. You can type in more. You can just scroll up to see some of your colleagues' responses in the chat. And then we're going to jump into the next step of this warm-up activity. Okay, so thank you to all of those who put your thoughts in the chat, and some of you may have just decided to keep your thoughts within your own head. This is fine too. What we're gonna do right now, again, just a very short activity. We're gonna break out into breakout rooms, and you can choose how you want to engage in that space, whether just over the chat or through voice and video. I encourage to take advantage of this synchronous opportunity with your peers to say hello, connect, and make those kinds of connections while we're separated by distance and time. But while you're in those breakout rooms, what we'd like you to do is to think about what are the reasons that you believe people wrote those emotions down or wrote those feelings or reactions down. So we've identified certain reactions to such a prompt, and then share with these small groups of colleagues what are some of the key contributors that you've experienced yourself or that you believe and can refer are the reasons that others shared these responses. And just a casual, informal conversation. And Bart, myself, and several of the other moderators of this experience are going to be popping in and out to those rooms also to say hello and to hear some of your thoughts. So I am going to randomly assign, let's see, a 36, we'll do, let's do 8. Let's do 9, yeah, there we go. We'll do 8. So you're gonna see in a moment an invitation to join a breakout room. Please do so. Perhaps before you join, you'll scan through the chat again just to see some of those responses and reactions, and then you can go ahead and join. Here comes the button. No, here comes the button.
Okay, we're slowly gathering in the main area. So Rashaan, what have you learned in your group?
I had to jump in and out of groups because I was still managing the waiting room and getting people into groups. But
Okay.
at least the quick jump that I had with one group, it was nice to see everyone talking and sharing what their current roles and areas of teaching are. So I was thrilled, even in those 12 seconds that I was in group 2's room, that they were, it seemed engaging in a way as designed. So I think we're all back. I think the funny thing about these breakout rooms is the folks who return the most quickly have generally finished the task at hand there. And then there's folks who need all the way up to the moment that the rooms automatically close to finish those thoughts or finish those moments. It never seems to be a perfect science on the closing of the breakout rooms because you hate interrupting good conversations just because the technology demands it, right? It's not the same as being in person where you can get a feel and adjust of how that kind of group activity is happening just by the sounds in the room.
And I believe this in-person element, this human element to remote meeting like this, remote teaching is something that we miss the most. I don't know if you would agree, Rashaan.
Yes, for sure. And I think like everything, there's the affordances and limitations presented by any new challenge, but certainly I know I have preferences of being in the room and being fully present with those whom I'm serving and teaching.
So what is your one word reaction, if I may ask you, because you asked the audience here, but what is your reaction when you're asked to teach over video conferencing tools?
Well, I guess I'll add the thing that, and it's in an hour. So maybe this should have been the question that was asked of me, you know, at 7 a.m. Eastern time, because then here we are in a teaching setting 1 hour later. I guess at this point, I approach it with maybe acceptance is the word I would use. I accept that this is a new default and expectation in my profession. And then hopefully that bridges to opportunity and balance.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bart, for asking me. I'm curious, and I don't like putting folks on the spot in these larger settings, but you all seem courageous and kind. So I would love to, and you can put it in the chat, or you can unmute your mic and share bravely. What are some of the things, if you had a chance to even consider these questions or prompt, like what are some of the things that came up in your brief breakout group?
So maybe to encourage others, I will start with findings from my group that I joined. It's the fatigue that surfaced in that group, and it's already here on the board. It's something that was shared by Sabina. Fatigue is growing over time. First it was excitement, then the fatigue, right? And the other thing that we spoke about was the constant need to be prepared and the complexity of, this preparation when you're faced with the situation of teaching over video conferencing tools?
Got it. Thanks, Bart. Oh, yes, please.
Yes, can I do a little bit of cold calling? Because I know we had a couple of nice things said in our group. So Rafael, I'm calling you out. Please join us. Unmute.
I think I have to allow people to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. I can speak now. Thank you very much. We spoke about this situation that 1 hour and a big group could be much harder than to, for example, to have a course with a group of people and with a smaller group, because when you have such a closer relationship with the students, you can press them a little bit to start this closer relationship, to switch on cameras, for example, to can have this two-way communication. It's much harder when you have, for example, a conference and 1 hour speech at 100 or more people. You have no this influence on them, and because of that, it could be much more stressful situation than situation in with your normal class, let's say.
That's true. It's a different situation to engage such a large group. And different tools are used for that. Mm-hmm.
Hi, hello everyone. May I jump in? We actually discussed, well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And my name is Diana. I'm currently working at Narhoz University. So we discussed several issues. The first issue was that the accessibility. So we were worried that not every student actually has the technological equipment to reach all of those classes. And some of my colleagues said that to keep up the motivation, you'll have to make classes more entertaining. And to complement the argument of accessibility, we thought sometimes it is going to be even more challenging to make classes entertaining, considering that some of your students may not have those technological equipments, considering for instance, the laptops or a good internet connection. So we were talking about this, and yeah, I think we were also worried about the students' engagement, because some of them also mute their microphones and would like to join. So that was the issue that we talked about. Thank you.
May I?
Right.
Hello, everybody. The main issue is from the very beginning, the IT technologies, the internet connection from the very beginning, and at the same time, some kind of cliche or so-called stereotype among students or the listeners, because they sometimes when they are online or virtual conferences, attending their different kind of meetings, they are not capable or do not want to be seen. For instance, videos are off mostly. This is the biggest problem what I've observed during 1 year and a half. And after this, we lecturers or the trainers or coaches are trying to behave the same, to respond adequately, as they are not going to be seen and to show their faces, then we are not showing as well. And we are feeling ourselves quite comfortably when we do not show ourselves. So it's, I think that it's some psychological problem, as well as the environment where he or she is, because some of the listeners can't be at home or in a very good atmosphere in order to be involved thoroughly, vividly to the audience, walking in the streets or something like this. There are lots of kind of obstacles, but mostly I think that it's a stereotyped vision and the attitude from them.
Thank you very much. I also was, there's also one challenge that I actually felt incredibly anxious about it, because since we were transferred to the Zoom classes immediately, I as a teacher felt lack of training. So because of that, I felt that maybe I'm not ready to adapt whole my methodology and syllabi to the Zoom classes.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And I also see on chat, Sladana is sharing that there's also a problem of getting the message through. Okay.
So these are really.
Can I say something, Reshan?
Oh, yes, please. Yes.
No, thanks. See, some of the other things that I observed were that there is less peer-to-peer learning. Okay, the connection and bonding between the students is much less. The enthusiasm of both the students and the professor is to an extent lower than what you would see in the classroom. Okay. Also, what I've observed is that as many of the students keep their videos off, you're not really sure if they are there, and often cold calling therefore does not work. Okay, so that's an issue as well. And the final point I would like to make here is that we have to be conscious of the environment of the student. You know, the students may be at home, they may be having limitations, there may be other people out there. And so, you know, to understand that when we are asking them to participate or, you know, confirm things, it's also important to have that empathy to be able to understand what's happening at the other end.
Yeah, the camera on off thing for students, right? The students who are called into these spaces is always interesting because as educators, you know, we do respond to that visual feedback, right? When we're communicating and trying to articulate a point or a concept, we read the facial, body, all of those elements, right? So when I think about students camera off, it's not about like, you know, me trying to check, are you paying attention? But rather, is what I'm saying actually coming across in the way I intend? And then that's hard to read. I think even when camera's on, it's difficult to read. And then it's just exacerbated that much more when that particular visual feedback channel is cut off.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, of course, you can only see a limited number on your screen at one point in time. And so if you have a PPT on, then you can only see 5 people on the screen in many cases, unless you have a separate screen by seeing all the students. So that's a limitation as well.
So I would say that confirming understanding on the recipient's end, on students' end, is a challenge to itself, because we need to be, you know, find other ways to do that than in the classroom, just reading the social cues, right?
So if it's okay, so again, thanks everyone. It's really nice, impressive, inspiring to have you all sharing and engaging in this way. You know, I think it paints a picture of great hope that our, you know, current and future instructors and leaders are thinking about these things in these way, because that'll only help not only our students, but this entire profession navigate these challenges better in the future, even though we all hope some of these challenges will also just get mitigated and reduced over time. Maybe what we can do here is pivot to some connected thoughts and research around some of these dynamics of video conferencing, and certainly something that Bart and myself and the team for the company that we co-founded have been paying attention to. I don't know how many of you saw, or maybe it came in what we shared, you know, there was some interesting research that came out of Stanford that I haven't fully vetted down to its primary sources, but at least conceptually that their findings are at least relatable, right? Of course, with all good research, you want to make sure that it stands up across the board. But what was really interesting when they were thinking about those elements that contribute to negative video conference experiences, and I'll take the liberty of assuming this is both for the speaker, but also for the audience, right? Like things that folks are feeling when asked to engage over video conference. So the first thing that they suggested was that one of the things leading to what they identified as Zoom fatigue or video conference fatigue, that excessive amounts of close-up eye contact is highly intense. And I think if you, both in person, but certainly Zoom. And I think what's not mentioned is that for most people, unless you've got like an awesome rig, where your camera is positioned is different than where the audience is. So no matter what, there's always this disconnect. Like if I want to look at you, I'm looking here, but now I'm no longer making eye contact. But if I look here, I'm looking right at the camera lens and I only see you in periphery. It's like a very unhuman way of connecting face to face, but we're all doing it, right? And it's completely disorienting. Another thing related is just constantly seeing yourself can be a fatiguing element, right? Because all of a sudden you're just operating in front of a mirror, right? Even unintentionally. And unless you're a performer practicing certain craft, that may not be something you're trying to do in real time while you're performing, maybe in practice, but not during a performance. It's also true. I mean, here we are, we've been together for 33 minutes and I'm assuming everyone on this call is more or less in the same exact seat they've been in since this call started. So here we are now tethered to the place, which also is not at all how we're built to operate, right? We are mobile creatures. And generally speaking, you know, this of course has a stretch to it to define, well, what do you mean by the full cognitive load? But I guess just the amount of brain resource management to be effective and be present during video chats. This is what the researchers suggest are some of the issues. But then they went on to say, what are some things that you could do to mitigate? So one of the things is to exit full screen video, like full screen on your desktop. So now that you've like minimized it so that it's not in full view. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm gonna stop my share just as an exercise. So you don't see this happening, but maybe you all can see, like if your thing is in speaker view and in full screen, to what degree does minimizing the window all of a sudden just reduce the size of your audience's eyeballs? And to what degree might that just mitigate some of that, quote, excessive eye contact? That's worthy of an experiment. I'm sharing my screen again. Seeing yourself during it's constantly is fatiguing. Well, they said you can hide your self view. So I know in Zoom it's allowed. I don't know in all the other tools how it works, but I know in Zoom when I hover over my thumbnail and you get those 3 dots, there's a thing called hide self view. So I just clicked it. So I'm no longer in my gallery of videos, but you are all there. So that's like one of their suggestions, super practical. And maybe you don't immediately feel it, but maybe it's like a subconscious thing. Now I don't know how to get my self view back. I'll figure that out later. Reduce the proximity to the screen by using external keyboard. So, you know, just being wireless, that all of a sudden, like you can be further back from the place while still maintaining your connection, right? Or simply just turning off your camera. So you just even forget about needing to deliver that element of yourself, right? So all of a sudden, you're focusing on what's in your mind, maybe what's coming out of your mouth, what you might be visualizing on the screen, but not also now thinking about your own visual performance as one of your communicative channels. So let me pause there. I don't know if Bart, you have anything to add, but when I came across this, I get like the start of a breadcrumb trail. I felt like at least there were things and statements that I could recognize, and that I thought that their suggestions in this yellow box were certainly at least worthy of an effort to try, and to see like to what degree do these make me feel less fatigued when constantly engaging across this medium.
I guess those findings are perhaps to some degree something that you already discovered along the way. It's just a long year behind us now. And I believe most of us teaching remotely, we found this, middle sweet spot of how to perform the workshops, provide lessons in a way that is at least to some degree comfortable. Perhaps it will be useful to you when we share the way we like to do it. And I'll turn this question first to you, Rashaan. Knowing what you know, and being co-founder of a software that is a software dedicated for teachers, what do you do in order to succeed in a situation when you need to engage with your students remotely?
So the word like entertainment, I know was used prior to think about, well, what do we need to do to kind of I don't know, capture attention, maintain attention and engagement. And so to a degree, right, when we're speaking, lecturing, instructing, right, that there's the words coming out of our mouth, right? There might be, again, what we're pointing our fingers to on the board or projector, but then there's our own like body and mannerisms and gestures, and all of those are part of this story that we're trying to tell. I think across video conference, all of a sudden, such a huge responsibility gets placed on the thought around the visual channel, right? Because the audio channel, I think we can solve well enough, right? If I turn off my camera and stop my share and keep talking, hopefully you feel some sense of loss, maybe not, but that you cannot see me right now, nor am I using any like visual to share. But if I'm a very skilled speaker, which I don't think I am, maybe I can be effective in communicating just orally like that. I'm gonna turn my video back on. I think I've still hidden my self view. Oh, show self view. I'm back. Here I am. So what we've been trying to do, in our professional work, but also our academic work and our professional work, is to recognize how do we leverage visual, but not just like static visual, but movement and something that's a little bit raw and authentic and responsive to what's going on. And that's really like, it's something as simple as a whiteboard. And maybe as you've seen, the way that Bart and I have just been trying to capture it, it's not pretty, but it's relevant. I'm certain that if we shared this image with you all after this session, you'll understand what it was about, because you were here. You'll know the context by which these notes were generated. If this got shared or just posted without context, it will make less sense to that audience. It may still have some other side value, but we're trying to think about how do we leverage visual spaces in order to better visually serve audiences across here. When right now, like, I can do a thing. So I'm gonna turn off my camera again. Actually, no, I'm gonna turn it off in a second. I'm outside of full screen. I'm going to hide my self view again. So I'm going to follow each of these steps. I'm not going to use external camera, but I'm actually using a mobile device. So let me just show my self view again. I'm going to I'm stepping away. Oh, this is kind of off. Let me just see. Okay, hopefully you see me there. But I'm still able to kind of walk around and pace in this room that I'm in here, while hopefully my audio connection is still okay, because I'm cleverly using AirPods and headphones. But all of a sudden, I feel like if I'm not worried about my visual channel, I'm going to turn my camera off now. I'm speaking to you, and I could tell you about how I love to think about teaching settings, right? So we've got in person, and we've got remote, and then you've got within here synchronous and asynchronous. So look, you don't see where I'm standing in my room, and you don't see, I'm not worried about my facial expressions and my body language and all of that, but I'm still able to somehow visually accompany the things I'm talking about, but in a way that I feel like I can be a little bit more natural, a little bit more spontaneous and authentic. And I feel like that's a good thing. I can turn my camera off, I can exit full screen mode, I can detach from the keyboard, and maybe I'll hide my self view. Okay, I'm gonna come back now. Let me see if I did that correctly. But it just changes the tenor. And I don't think this is the solution for all problems or anything like that. But what we like to think about is, how do we empower teachers, instructors, professors to realize through all of this that we've been experienced, our bank of choice has now increased. Like we can be more aware of the types of things that are possible for us to utilize, while at the same time not sacrificing ours or our audience's mental health to a degree. That like there are ways to find other balances that can just be simple and subtle moves. Let me pause there again for Bart, if you wanted to jump in with anything, or anybody else wants to share a reaction or even a challenge.
I like what Rafa mentioned before, is that this difference between large group setting and the small group setting, because with the small group setting, when in a remote scenario, it's actually quite easy to engage with students in a similar way as we're using this space here that I draw together. What I do during my lectures is that I engage my students that way. I ask them to join the board and be here with me. That is, I let them scribble on the board if they like, or show me the direction that they want me to expand on some points that I'm making. But if I use slides, I put them to the board to manipulate. And by sharing the space together with students, at least I have some ways to engage with them. And what I found is that students appreciate that a lot. So this is working method that is usable with smaller groups up to 10, 15 people, but not within the larger groups setting. I don't know if, Rashaan, you have any observations on, using the space to engage with your students.
Yeah, what you're describing is just yet another choice, right? So that there's tools, I mean, Explain Everything is one for sure, where in these digitally mediated visual spaces that you can bring groups of people together. So hopefully, I mean, it's probably happening behind the scenes for all of you, but Bart and I are here. So he and I are both writing in this space together, and this could be any of you, right? If you were, I mean, we could do that now, working together in a space. And it becomes a way of saying like, all right, I can be visually engaged, I can give visual feedback, but it's no longer dependent on the camera as the source of that, of confirming understanding. That all of a sudden this Canvas space becomes a place for you as an instructor, whatever collaborative space you have, but inviting students there, you figure out ways, how can I use that to serve a similar purpose that normally maybe eye contact and reading those facial cues and gestures would normally do for you as an instructor to confirm that your message is getting across clearly.
Correct. And that's actually the main takeaway from the study that you shared, and something that I use in my practice, not to rely on the video feed, understood as, camera feed. And in the classroom, rather rely on the space that is shared. And this visual that we're sharing to you, we're just broadcasting a visual. So it's like static to you. And as Rashaan pointed out, you could engage with us as our students engage, let's say, during our lectures, using the same tool that we're using. So trying to take away this reliance on video feed. It needs to be there though, when teaching in the hybrid setting, the camera should be there to show your mobility in the classroom with other participants being in the class. But the space can be the main visual used for both engagement and instructions.
I think what I understand about the CEEMAN network is that there's both the digital connections, but also that you make a point of trying to find times to get together in person. And I would say that both for teaching, but also for those kinds of professional networks, the strongest ones that I've been a part of are ones that do have that balance of being close together, and then that in-between time can be more effective because you've done those other things to build and strengthen those relationships and trust and almost calibrate to one another's modes. So it's a hard thing to establish that from the outset. And a lot of us were forced that a course that typically would meet in person all of a sudden is meeting online. And it's not just about the content, right? It's about establishing that rapport and understanding with those whom you're teaching. And I don't think there's a digital substitute for that physical proximity. But while such a constraint gets presented, there are ways to at least try to navigate it as best as possible, while we of course strive towards that better future when back in person, and having choice of when to make the best of online is more of a choice rather than a requirement.
And that's true. The sequence is very important. If we started working with our students, teaching our students in the real life, we build this trust, this rapport, and then moving to this remote situation is so much easier. But we do have teachers that needed to start the relation with their students, at a distance, without possibility of meeting in the classroom, and it's so complicated in such scenario. So yeah, I'm all for the choice and using those modes and changing those modes in a right sequence, starting first in class and then remote.
So just keeping an eye on the time. I don't know if we have time, but I certainly want to leave some room if there's any other general questions, thoughts that folks would want to discuss. And we also want to make sure there's enough time for our wonderful organizers to share any of their elements that they want to make sure everyone here is aware of. But we'll open up for questions here.
May I jump in? Thank you very much for such an incredible performance. I actually never thought that through because I used to just sit on my classes like this and just make sure that students can see me or can hear me. But I was wondering if we're teaching children, so if there was a way to active, would that be okay to do this kind of performances? Because it seems to me like if they start repeating the same actions as we did, as teachers did, it will be a bit challenging to to make sure that they're in their seats and then that they're still engaged in the classes. So if we're talking about elementary schools, I think that might be a bit challenging. Maybe we could take a closer look at this group of students. What do you think?
So we are, like, for the company, for Explain Everything, like that's where we've always started operating, was in K-12 schools. And certainly for the instructor, a teacher in an elementary, middle, or secondary school setting, yes, there's a little bit more effort and scaffolding and people management that's required, but not impossible, right? Like you can set up a well-structured and like safe, virtually mediated environment. But I would say it requires more effort because unlike undergraduate or graduate master's level students who are formed adults, you can give them a little bit more independence and expectations of following certain steps to get to a certain place. And things with, well, generally with the younger kids the longer it takes to get there, just from guidance and instruction. But to me, no less different of their ability to participate in spaces like that. Because for them, from what I've seen, and especially early elementary or even early childhood, like kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, as we call it in the US, it's like crayon on paper. So it's actually a more natural environment than using a mouse or a keyboard, which is also a very like unhuman mode of interacting, right? That if in like the design world, there's direct and indirect manipulation. So one of the reasons that you see, a baby can operate an iPhone, it's not because like Apple did anything genius. It's literally because of touch, right? So their finger is touching a place and a response is happening. That cognitively makes sense. Whereas when you're operating a mouse, you're now needing to navigate moving an object that's to your right or left or a trackpad, a cursor that's its own independent body that has all sorts of variety settings, and then like the actions of clicking things or double clicking or right clicking. That's a form of indirect manipulation, which as professionals, we've just all gotten very good at. But it's kind of like the technology has dictated that type of human technology interaction.
what we found when working with primary and secondary schools using Explain Everything, because yes, that's right, we started with K-12, is that, the first thing when teacher uses this mode of engagement and allowing students to get on the board with them, the first thing they do is they play. And it's great if you watch it in terms of engagement. The engagement skyrockets, but at some point you need some structure, and by the experiences that we gather over time, we actually build those ways to make the session more organized. It's not a problem with adults, but with younger students, it is something that is doable, but as Rashaan mentioned, it takes a little bit more time to structure. But the good thing is something that we also learned is that usually younger students don't have any problems using the technology. It's us, the teachers, that needs to put more mental effort into learning those tools. Students don't have those problems.
Thank you very much.
Hi, do we have time to ask anything?
Sure, please go ahead.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Olga. How are you all? Okay, I joined a bit late, but I would just like to have a comment on, I'm going to talk about something which is very geography specific and culture specific. I'm based in the Middle East, and here what happens, that if, when you try to engage with the students, which we try a lot, and yes, there is an improvement from the last semester because we are not into online teaching regularly. So we have been, improving and learning things. But what happens here when students, like, you want to argue with the student about something, just to have a base on critical thinking and things like that. Here, the culture is that they don't argue with you. They think that they are going to disrespect the teacher. So have you ever, because you people were talking about some researchers, so do you have any kind of research which says anything about any kind of initiative which we can take ahead and try here in the Middle East? And one more thing, when there are more girls in the class, boys are totally muted. They won't talk. And it's so difficult to engage. We have been trying so many, platforms and engagement tools and in-house, online platform which we have got. But anything specific, if you would be able to share with me, so I can share with other colleagues.
So of course, I would need to understand a little bit more, but here's my reaction: that I don't think it's about the tool. I think it's about the way the question is being asked or the task is being designed. So if culturally, right, between a figure of authority and a student, there's a reservation about challenging that, even in the context of an exercise, of a teaching exercise, that like to reframe the task where instead of them critically commenting on something from the teacher, present it as a case, or somebody else said this, what might you argue to suggest that something or other? So all of a sudden you're taking out that emotional or that personal relationship out of that student's ability to comment critically about something. So it's very much taking like almost like a case. Is this for undergraduate or for is this elementary, secondary?
Undergraduate.
Undergraduate. Even there. So yes. So even more so, I feel like looking at like a case type of methodology, or even just reframing the task so that it's not you as the teacher trying to spontaneously get them to react and perform or demonstrate their critical thinking, but rather ramp up to it by first having them demonstrate it in a way that it just subtracts that power dynamic from the task, and then maybe it builds up to it, that they develop that competence there. So that's like my instinctive reaction from an instructional design perspective to the challenge that you just raised.
Thank you, Rashaan, for that. In the past, we have done some kind of modifications in the assessment task that has been a bit useful, but let's see how it goes. Yeah, thank you for that.
Oh yeah, good luck. That's a big challenge.
Thank you very much. May I also support this idea, because we're in Kazakhstan also facing the same issue. Teacher is always perceived as an authority and usually as a more of a judge. For instance, if there are several opinions in the classroom, teacher usually comes up and say, well, this opinion is correct or this opinion is right. But this actually changed when I attended when I entered to Nazarbayev University and took some classes there, because, well, first of all, teachers set a rule from the beginning of a class that it is absolutely okay to, so the first thing, it was the setting up the rules, for instance, like the class regulations, like you are very much free to express your opinion, but you have to be polite, but you have to be respectful towards your peers. And the teacher usually comes up whenever this discussion comes up more of a like aggression tone or finding out who's right or who's wrong. So she or he usually, professors usually comes up, jumps in and says, make sure that you're respectful for your peers. And usually whenever we enter to the class, it has been written on the board. So I think that might be also useful. And she always, I do remember that one professor usually used to talk to us a lot and says, for instance, she actually taught us several phrases. For instance, if you want to end up a conversation, but you don't want to argue, you can say, it's okay to, let's agree to disagree, or something like that. For instance, maybe teaching this kind of phrases and making sure that those you're creating safe environment might be helpful. But I'm still, but I'm kind of layman in that field. I'm not a researcher, but considering that I have experienced that and I have changed my opinion and I'm currently projecting it during my classes, I think that might be useful. Maybe you should try that. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Diana.
Right, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, the on-ramp and like the trust building is such a big part of it, right? So, but there's ways, how do you both build up the skill, but while also building up that relationship so that people feel that safety and that the norms are actually being honored. Because you can establish those norms however you want, but then people who are invited into those spaces and systems need time to really believe that everybody is really being accountable to them and honoring them.
Thank you. We're almost at the top of the hour. There's one more question coming from German Rodriguez. If you could provide the question before we wrap up the session today.
Okay, yes, more than a question is a comment, because we have talking about student fatigue, but what about the teachers fatigue? Because we have to plan, we have to think many things, and we have to prepare, and we need to rest, to plan the breakout and many things. And as Bartosz said, children and young people don't have a problem with the technology, with the ICT. We have many challenge with the I don't know, the preparing of the classes. So I interested that in the future we have another session to see or to steer the teacher fatigue or the instruction fatigue.
I think this is a very valid point and important question to answer. And unfortunately, we don't have time to do that today, but it might be a good reason to have a follow-up session and speak about that. So yeah, let's try it. If you guys would agree, I would suggest, Ladana, that we think about a follow-up session to explore those questions and great comments from you.
Absolutely. I think we have a lot to talk about. We barely scratched the surface. As I can see today from this, we call it a pilot session. We tried a webinar where we wanted to engage participants as much as possible, and I think we succeeded. Now, before wrapping up, I would also like to invite our dear Olga, CEEMAN director, to join us to say a couple of words. You know, today I have my entire team with us, and I see just now that unfortunately at the very end, because of some technical issues, also Omar joined us, you know, one of the EdTech faculty. I'm not sure if you noticed, but he's also here. So Olga, if you can just please join us.
Thank you, Slađana. Thank you, everyone. It's great to hear and, well, see some of you. I don't know if those who are with the camera, if you could still maybe turn your cameras on, just that we see more faces. That would be great. It's so wonderful to really have this space to discuss issues that teachers are facing. I mean, we've heard about them for more than a year now. And I think everyone is talking, yes, about Zoom fatigue, both for students and for faculty, about being overloaded, overwhelmed. So hopefully meetings like this will continue and will help to deal with at least some issues. But I think we have material and interest already for 2 follow-up meetings. So one is to talk about faculty fatigue, and another one to talk and to try the whiteboard, right? Because I think that would be really interesting for everyone, just, to join you and Rashaan like you did today, writing and scribbling on the board, but that everyone from different corners of the world could contribute and co-create something together. I think this would be something very, very special. And also an opportunity to try this tool out, because I think all faculty are looking for ways, how to enrich their teaching, how to make it more engaging and enjoyable for both sides, It's not just Zoom and slides and a couple of polls, but something very interesting and unique and playful. I mean, at the end, we all have to enjoy and bringing some gamification elements. I mean, we talk a lot about education becoming edutainment and bringing more gamification into it. And exploring our playful sides as well. So I hope we will be able to continue these conversations in the future, and also leading up to the EdTech seminar that we have with Omar and Kaya and Nikos and you, Bart, in October online. And then another platform to talk about pedagogical issues will be certainly also our IMTA, International Management Teachers Academy, which, believe it or not, we will try to have in person in Bled, in Slovenia, in August. And it's so good to see here quite a few IMTA alumni. I mean, I see Durbek from Uzbekistan, who is probably one of the oldest generations from 2000, and Vina joining from Oman. And I mean, Omar and Kai is a living example of IMTA connections and collaborations going on for years. So it's really, really great to see you all. Thank you for joining. We're here for you. We would love to hear your feedback. So please expect an email from us asking you a couple of, impressions, how this session was for you, which other topics you would like to address, and also if we can help you in any other way. Thank you so much. And thank you, Bart and Rashaan, for joining us today, for running this session for us. I think it was a great pilot event, and I really hope we continue with this.
Thanks for having us. I mean, we're all in it. So let's explore, exchange knowledge, and learn how to be better every year. Thank you.
Rashaan, maybe some closing words from your side as well before I finally bring this to an end.
Oh, yeah, thank you, and be safe and brave out there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you everyone for being with us. Basically what the reasoning behind this session was basically because everybody is talking about the schools and student engagement and so on, but are we taking care of you, of the professors? This was our main concern, and we didn't even touch this topic. So I really think we should do a follow-up. And I would like to end with a little bit of homework for you. So I'll try to make an eye contact now. So I want you to do a little bit of homework. Homework number 1 is you need to acknowledge yourselves. We've done a lot in the last year. We have overcome many challenges, and many challenges are still here and still to come, but we need to pat ourselves on the shoulder, and we need to acknowledge ourselves. We need to see that we are doing good, and we did a lot, and many good things are yet to come. And homework number 2 is there's always somebody next to us who is helping us on this journey, who is making us feel a little bit better and making our lives a little bit easier. I'm pretty sure all of us have a person like that, professionally or in private life. So the homework number 2 is you need to acknowledge this person as well. You need to call or text or do a video message or a voice message today after this session. Make somebody smile today, okay?
Okay.
I need a thumbs up. Okay, great. I see the thumbs. Thank you so much for being here with us, and hope to see you in the next session, and hope to see you in person as well. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.